Dagestan is the hotbed for the sport of wrestling around the globe. This small region in the south of Russia has produced more world and Olympic champions than anywhere else in the world and has been dominating freestyle wrestling since the beginning of the sport. Wrestling in the Caucasus region has become so dominant that even the wrestlers who don't make it to the world or Olympic level transition to fighting and have become legends in the sport of MMA and the UFC. For those of you who don't know, I made a video about how I spent 2 to 3 years of my senior year of high school training wrestling in Dagestan and how that eye-opening experience attributed to my passion for wrestling at the next level and ultimately helped me become a world champion in freestyle wrestling in 2023. But many of you don't know that my very first competition at the senior level representing Serbia happened to be in Dagestan at the European Championships, one of the biggest and most notorious tournaments in the sport of wrestling. Before we get into it, guys, make sure to show some love, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn notification bells on. The year was 2018, and I just finished up my sophomore year at the University of Michigan, where I finished as a Big Ten champion and an NCAA runner-up at 133 pounds. This season was kind of my first real big season. Even though prior I finished 4th the year before for Michigan, 133 pounds, this one kind of gave me a lot of confidence. For the most part, I was able to really mature physically into my body and into my weight, where I felt like I now kind of had a better balance of not just my technique, but also my physical and my overall skill level and mental kind of combined to allow me to compete at a higher level. And although falling short of the NCAAs, I was ready for freestyle season. But this freestyle season was different because I was representing Serbia for the first time on my international career. Before that, I wrestled for the U17 and U20 world teams for Team USA, but over the years of 2016 and 2017, I decided to represent my father's side of the family and my heritage, the nationality of being Serbian, having dual citizenship. I also thought it was a great idea because I could wrestle freestyle and focus on myself, improving in my wrestling, and being able to compete at more international events, getting better at freestyle, which is always my true passion over college. And it just so happens the very first tournament that I competed at for Serbia was the European Championships, which happens every year around the springtime. Being someone who's always been very skilled in freestyle and had a little bit of experience of traveling around the globe for my age group competitions, I was really excited and chomping at the bit, especially after a really great year for Michigan. And what made me even more excited was that I got to go back to Dagestan 5 years later. While many people would be nervous or timid to be going to Dagestan to compete, I was really excited and very calm actually because I had already spent the time there while I was in high school, understanding the culture, the training methods, and have already built a great relationship with many of the people there. And on top of that, with being in such good shape from the college season, the Europeans only being 3 weeks following, I knew that I could continue my good shape to follow up to a weight cut that I had to make. Unfortunately, because Serbia is such a small wrestling country, especially when it comes to freestyle wrestling, they don't have the funding to have all at 10 weight classes. So I had to wrestle at an Olympic weight class, which was either 57 kilos, 125 pounds, or 65 kilos, 143. Being someone who wasn't a big 133 pounder, I figured I could probably make 125, especially with my weight being down so low, going 133. I just had to get my dieting right and make sure I planned properly and accordingly. What also made this better was that Cliff Keen Wrestling Club had many wrestlers representing other countries, such as good friend Dave Habit, who represented Slovenia. He also was going to the European Championships at 65 kilos. And on top of it, our RTC coach, Andy Rovat, has also spent 8 months in another region called Ossetia, so he's very familiar with the Caucasus regions and has a very good reputation in the Dagestan, Ossetia, Chechen regions of Russia. And although it was my first competition for Serbia, I really didn't feel any pressure because I don't think they were expecting too much, especially that I was still at the under 23 age group category, and I just skipped that to compete at the senior level. And they did know that I was good enough to wrestle well, but overall, I was just ready to compete, knowing with all these benefits on my side, I was ready to go. I remember the flight to Dagestan was extremely long. We actually flew all day, had a layover to get to Moscow, and then had to stay the night there in an airport hotel, where we left early in the morning the next day to get to Makhachkala, the capital of Dagestan. Super crazy about it was landing there. I remember seeing Gadisov, one of the Dagestan wrestling legends, have a picture of on a billboard for a phone advertisement. This just reminded me how big wrestling was in Dagestan, where literally their top A-list celebrities were all wrestlers. Spending the first couple days acclimating to the time change, weight cutting, and training with Dave, Andy, and my Serbian coach Dejan, it was really nice because United World Wrestling, or UWW, sanctioned the whole event of the European Championships, so the hotels, food, sleep, and everything was very good and accounted for well. We also had mats to train and a good sauna to cut weight. Coming across a lot of high-level wrestlers and seeing them, guys that I looked up to watching and competing at the senior level circuit, it was really, really mind-blowing to me thinking that now I'm there competing at the same level as these guys. So it was a little bit intimidating at first, but for the most part I stayed calm and was pretty used to it, especially wrestling on the college scene in the U.S. This being my second time in Dagestan, as well as being more mentally mature 5 years later at the age of 22, was also a lot better for me because I was able to already digest the world there, because the first time I was in Dagestan was pretty culture shocking to me, and I got pretty homesick, to be honest with you. As much as I did learn for it and loved it a lot, being 17 and away from your parents for 3 weeks in a foreign country can be pretty intimidating and scary. So now, being 22, a lot more mature and ready to wrestle, I couldn't wait and I was chomping at the bit to compete. I remember that weight cut too as well, getting my last couple kilos off in the sauna in the morning of the competition. It was pretty hard, but for the most part, I stayed disciplined and got my weight off. But after making weight and getting fueled up, I found out who my first opponent would be, which blew my mind completely. Out of all the wrestlers that were registered with me in the weight class of 57 kilos, the very first wrestler I had just so happened to be Zaur Uguyev, my friend that I made back in 2013 on my first trip to Dagestan. Zaur Uguyev was already a junior world champion at the time, and for those of you who know, went on to become a back-to-back world champion, one of those happening that year, as well as the Olympic gold medals in Tokyo. He also is from a region in Dagestan called Kasyavert, where we trained together. So not only was I wrestling an old friend of mine, I was wrestling him in his hometown, his home crowd, where all eyes were going to be on our mat, first match in the morning at the lightest weight class. This made me really nervous, and although I had nothing to lose going out here, I felt that because it was my first competition, I just wanted to make sure I could prove myself on the mat and not do anything dumb. I didn't want to get thrown. I didn't want to get caught in any dumb leg lays or gut wrench. I just wanted to make sure I proved myself on my feet. Well, to my surprise, I actually ended up wrestling Zaur very, very well. Our match finished 6-4. I actually scored the first takedown, where then he rallied, scored 3 in a row, taking the lead 6-2. With short time left, I scored another takedown with the front headlock shuck by, getting behind and being down 6-4. I almost caught him at the end, where he kind of slipped up and could have maybe taken advantage and gotten the takedown to win it, but I ended up falling 6-4. Where overall, I felt like I did wrestle pretty timid against Uguyev, and at this point he was a world team member on the senior level, and he hadn't proven himself the world level for seniors yet, but we all knew he was tough, and it was in Dagestan. Speaking of which, the crowd was amazing. I honestly don't think I've wrestled in a better environment. Even the NCAA tournament wasn't as good as this. The arena was much smaller, but it was packed to the brim. People screaming, cheering, and just wrestling legends all over the place. I happened to run across Sergey Beloglazov, who ended up becoming my coach at Michigan a few years later, as well as Arsen Fadzayev, Buvaisar Saitiev, and many, many more. Wrestling to them was everything, and so they made sure to show it on the mats. This European Championships also so happened to have some of my favorite matches of all time to watch. Haji Aliyev had a historic comeback against Ilyas Bekbulatov of Russia, winning a European gold. Frank Chamizo catching and pinning Hetik Sabalov, my future Serbian teammate from Russia, in the quarterfinals in an insane match, which might have won Match of the Year that year in 2018. I also remember there being a really crazy controversy with an Azerbaijan and Polish wrestler, where the Azerbaijan suplexed the Polish wrestler with such short time, Gajiev, who's actually from Dagestan, and they got into a huge fight during it as well. It was pretty cool and crazy to watch. Luckily for me, even though I lost to Uguyev first match, he made the finals, which pulled me back into repesage, so I could try to wrestle for bronze. The next day, after making weight, I wrestled against a French wrestler who actually was pretty tough. I think I won 8-4 in this match. I kind of had a lead. I still was playing it pretty safe, especially after a second day weight cut. Giving up a couple dumb points, I still had a convincing match, winning 8-4. Where then I was wrestling for bronze. Where there I wrestled Midrashvili from Spain, a Georgian wrestler who used to be good back in his day, was towards his last leg of wrestling and end of his career. I had a lot of confidence and was feeling good the second day and bounced back well in my second match, so I was ready for this one. I came out storming, scored a lot of takedowns, and put on a show in front of this Dagestan crowd. I remember walking out to the mat because this was my first time representing Serbia. A lot of the Russian fans were confused, saying Serbia, Serbia, like they didn't think it was a country that really had a powerhouse of anything, especially when it was Serbia versus Spain. Then, once I got on the mat and took control, I got a lot of cheers, and honestly, a lot of wrestlers were standing on their feet cheering for me as I got the job done and won my first European medal and my first medal for Serbia, claiming bronze. Dave Habit also wrestled really well. He lost to Haji Aliyev in the semifinals in a really close match, and then lost again for bronze, taking 5th place. It was really cool that me and Dave were able to do well, representing Cliff Keen in our countries of heritage, being trailblazers for people that have represented their heritage going forward, especially with the huge movement of guys such as Sebastian Rivera, Miles Amin, and many, many others who have done really well in the international scene. Although it was only a bronze medal, this competition holds very true in my heart, and it's probably one of my favorite competitions I've ever wrestled at. To have the opportunity to wrestle in Dagestan, compete against one of their own, and get respected at such a young age really pushed me in a good direction, where I knew that the best was still yet to come. I hope you guys like this story. Make sure to subscribe for more. World champs and everything we do, baby. Let's go.